There's something about hiking that feels safe. Fresh air, open trails, nature all around you. But the truth is, once you're deep enough into the woods, there's no cameras or witnesses, and no one coming to help if something goes wrong. These are 3 true hiking stories that might make you think twice before your next trail. This happened to me last fall when I decided to go hiking alone for the first time. It was a popular trail during the mornings, but I got there late, around 4 p.m. I figured I still had plenty of daylight. At first, everything felt normal. I passed a couple heading back to the parking lot, but after that, I didn't see anyone else. About 20 minutes in, I heard footsteps behind me. Not unusual, I thought to myself. So I stepped slightly off the trail to let whoever it was pass. But they didn't. The footsteps stopped. I decided to turn around, and there was a man about 30 feet behind me, just standing there, not out of breath, not adjusting anything, just staring at me. I gave a quick, awkward smile and said, "Hey." He didn't respond, just kept staring. I was starting to feel nervous, but after a few seconds, I turned and kept walking. And then I heard the footsteps again. Like before, they were the same pace as mine. I sped up a little to see if he did too. And he did. At that point, my stomach suddenly dropped, and I stopped walking completely. The footsteps stopped instantly. I turned again. He hadn't gotten any closer, but he hadn't looked away either. That's when I made a mistake. Ignoring my instincts, I tried to brush it off and kept going deeper into the trail. Big mistake, because about 5 minutes later, I realized something. The trail up ahead splits into 2 paths, and right as I approached it, I heard him start running. Not jogging, full-on sprinting. I heard branches snapping behind me, and I didn't even look back. I just ran. I took the left path without thinking. I could hear him behind me for a few seconds. He was getting closer and closer. All I could think about was what would happen if he caught me. So I tried to run even faster. But still, I could hear him catching up to me. I forced myself to run as fast as I possibly could. But even with the adrenaline, I was getting tired. My legs were starting to give out, but I couldn't let him catch me. I had to keep running. I just had to. I heard his footsteps right behind me, so close it felt like he could grab me at any second. And then, suddenly they stopped. There was no other sound besides my own feet hitting the ground. I still kept running until I physically couldn't anymore. And when I finally slowed down and turned around, he was gone. I didn't see him anywhere, like he just disappeared. But here's the part that still messes with me. When I did finally make it back to my car, shaking and out of breath, there was no one else in the parking lot. No cars, no people, not a single sign of anybody. Just my car and me. used to go hiking with my older brother all the time. One weekend, we decided to try a less popular trail, something more adventurous. That should have been our first red flag. About an hour in, we noticed something weird. There were markings on the trees, but not the usual trail markers. These looked carved, deep and jagged, like someone had used a knife. At first, we joked about it. Maybe it was just a survivalist or something. But then the trail started to fade, like it just wasn't maintained anymore. My brother wanted to keep going. I didn't, but I followed anyway. Eventually, we reached a small clearing, and that's when we saw it. A makeshift campsite, not abandoned, definitely used. There were tarps tied between trees, old food containers, and something hanging from a branch. At first, I thought it was a bag. Then I realized it was clothing, dirty, ripped, and bloody. And there were multiple pieces. That's when we heard movement behind us. Not loud, just slow footsteps in the brush. We froze. Then we heard a voice, low and very calm. "Hello." We both turned. There was a man standing just at the edge of the trees, watching us. He looked off, like he hadn't seen people in a long time. My brother tried to act normal and said we were just passing through. The man didn't respond, just tilted his head and smiled. Not a friendly smile, a creepy smile that still haunts me. Then he took a step toward us, and another. That's when my brother grabbed my arm and whispered, "Don't run yet." The man kept walking closer, slowly and deliberately, like he knew we weren't going anywhere. The man was only about 20 feet away when my brother suddenly whispered, "Now." We bolted, crashing through the trees, not even following the trail anymore. And behind us, we could hear him running, faster than we could, branches snapping, footsteps getting closer. At one point, I swear I heard him laughing, but we didn't stop and didn't look back. We just ran until we somehow found the trail again. When we finally got back to the parking lot, there was a ranger there. We told him everything. The markings made by a knife, the campsite with the bloody clothing, and the crazy man that chased us. I'll never forget what he said next, because I still think about it to this day. He looked at us, not surprised at all, and said, "You're not the first, and probably won't be the last." I went hiking early one morning, just after sunrise. It should have been peaceful, but something about it felt off right away. The trail was quiet in a way that didn't feel normal. There were no birds, no wind through the trees, just this heavy stillness that made everything feel wrong. I tried to ignore it at first and kept walking, telling myself I was just overthinking it. But about 15 minutes in, I started hearing something behind me. It sounded like footsteps on gravel, soft, but clear enough that I couldn't brush it off. So I stopped and turned around, expecting to see someone coming up the trail, but there was no one there. The path behind me was completely empty. I stood there for a moment, listening, but nothing else happened. Everything just stayed quiet. After a few seconds, I turned back around and continued walking, trying not to let it get to me. Then I heard it again, the same sound, following just a few steps behind me. This time, I paid closer attention to it, and that's when I noticed something that didn't make sense. It was matching my pace perfectly. Every step I took, it followed at the exact same rhythm. Not faster, not slower, just perfectly in sync with me. I stopped walking again, and the sound stopped immediately. At that point, I started trying to rationalize it. I figured maybe it was just the way the gravel shifted under my feet, or some kind of echo carrying the sound behind me. So I stepped off the trail and onto the grass. The sound disappeared completely. Everything around me stayed quiet. Then I stepped back onto the gravel, and as soon as my foot touched the ground, the sound came back. But this time, I didn't move. I stayed completely still, watching the ground in front of me. And even though I wasn't moving anymore, I still heard it. A single step behind me, like something had just moved closer. That's when the panic really started to set in. I turned around again, faster this time, but the trail behind me was still empty. There was no one there, nothing in the trees, nothing on the path, just an empty stretch of trail. Then I looked down, and that's when I saw it. There were footprints in the dirt behind me that hadn't been there before. They were fresh, and they definitely weren't mine. They looked deeper, heavier, like whoever made them was much bigger than me. And they stopped right where I was standing, like whatever made them hadn't moved away. I remember feeling completely frozen in that moment, like if I did anything at all, something bad was going to happen. And then I heard it, right next to my ear, close enough that I could actually feel the air shift. A voice, barely above a whisper, telling me to keep walking. I didn't argue with it. I didn't even think about it. I just started walking. At first it was slow, but then it turned into a fast walk, and then into a run. I didn't look back. I didn't stop. I just kept going until I made it back to the parking lot. When I got to my car, I got inside as fast as I could and locked the doors. My hands were shaking so badly, I could barely start the engine. And right before I pulled out, I looked back toward the trail one last time. Part of me expected to see someone standing there, but the entrance was empty, and for some reason, that didn't make me feel better. It just made the whole thing feel much worse. Sometimes, the scariest part about hiking alone isn't getting lost. It's realizing you were never alone to begin with. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like and subscribe to True Terra. And remember, some trails should stay unexplored.